Hey friends, how's it going and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to talk to you about a loading publisher, which is a mechanism for handling a synchronous call and showing some kind of animation. Alright, so as you can see on my demo over here, I have a simulator here. I have a very simple label as well as a button. Alright, so as you can see on the storyboard, it's extremely simple. And when I tap on this button, I'm making an asynchronous call. I'm simulating fetching an API, and upon the callback, so you see I have an animation over here, and upon the callback, I am showing some kind of string inside here. Alright, so this happens to be randomized string. So when I tap on that again, I make that asynchronous call, show the animation, and upon a callback, update the values inside the label. So have you thought about how you can achieve that using combine, especially you're using a combine URL session, for example? Okay, so I'm going to show you in this video how you can achieve that with this library over here. Let me just bring this in. This is called Activity Indicator. Alright, so this is by Duong Chuang 91. Okay, this is 2 years ago, but still usable. Alright, so in this library, there are two parts. There's one that's the activity indicator, and there's also an error indicator as well, which I'll probably make a video in the subsequent week or so. Alright, so today I want to show you how you can actually use this to keep track of the waiting time when the user is waiting for the asynchronous callback to happen. Alright, so let's jump into the view controller, into the code over here. So this is not very long. I think it's about 100 lines long. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through how you can achieve this effect of this loading animation. Okay, so maybe let's start by coming to the view model. Okay, so the view controller should be fairly easy to understand. Okay, so inside this view model, okay, but before that, let's see what have we imported into this project. We have two libraries over here, the activity indicator, which is this one over here. Okay, so as you can see, I installed that using Swift Package Manager, and also I installed the SkeletonView as well to achieve this animation effect. Okay, so let's come back. So inside the view model, I have two struts to handle the input as well as the output. So there can only be one input, which is this button tap event. Alright, so initially I wanted to do that in view did load, but I thought that having the button tap is going to be a lot easier. And then there are two outputs over here. The first output is that the output is the loading publisher. Alright, so this returns a boolean. Alright, so the boolean will reflect whether we should animate this label or not. Alright, so this is true, and then when this returns false, we remove that loading view. Okay, and we have this data source publisher as well. So what this does is it returns what these values are. So in this case, it's just going to be a very simple string, but obviously in your use case, it's going to be a model, some kind of domain model. All right. Okay, so we have the transform function, which takes in the input and spits out the output. And over here, we create this activity indicator, and this is what is being shown over here. Let activity indicator, which is this one over here. And then what we need to do, before that, let's come over here to this function, make some API call. So of course, I'm not going to make a real API call. I'm going to simulate that, and the way you can do that is to use a future. All right, so this is very useful for you if you are developing and maybe backend is not ready, but you still want to simulate some kind of asynchronous call. Maybe introduce like 1 or 2 seconds to see how your app is still behaving. So this is one way to do it. Alright, so I use a future over here, and then I do a dispatch queue. So I basically wait for 1.5 seconds before I return a promise. Okay, and this is of success case. So obviously you can return a failure as well. So you can do something like that, failure. So if you want, you can mock by creating some kind of failure over here if you want to. Okay, but obviously this is outside of the scope of what I'm talking about. So we have a random string here, which basically just prints out some random string over here. Okay, so let's see what we do over here. Okay, so inside the data source publisher, I'm reading on the event of the button tap publisher, and then I'm flat mapping it. Flat map basically means transform from one publisher to another type of publisher, and I'm transforming it into this publisher over here, and this has the signature of string to error. Okay, and what I did over here, or what you need to do if you are using this library, is to just call the track activity method. Okay, so basically we pass in this activity indicator inside over here, and obviously I have to just default this to an empty publisher in the event if self is nil. All right, so this is how we do it. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for the view model. That's quite easy to explain. So let's now come to the view controller. So view controller, we have an instance of the view model. We have a button tap publisher, which is nothing more than a pass-through subject because we want to track whenever the button is being tapped, all right? And we have a cancellables, basically the subscription. And inside here, we have the label. Okay, and I have a loading view. So this is a custom view, okay, where the skeletonable property is enabled true, and this loading view basically it's being added to the sub view and takes the constraints of the label. Okay, so it's basically wrapping the entire label. Okay, so let's scroll down and see. So inside load view, we perform an observe function. So what does observe function is? It's basically like binding. Okay, so basically you can call this bind if you want to, but I just happen to like observe. Okay, so view deload, we call the layout or rather the setup views or the setup UI function, where we just add the loading view to the sub view and then constraining it to the bounds of the label. Okay, so let's look at observe. Okay, what do we have over here? We define the input, so there can only be one input, which is the button tap event, and therefore we do button tap publisher dot erase to any publisher. And how is this button tap publisher being triggered over here? All right, so when the button tap happens, we just call the send method. Okay, we're sending a void basically. Okay, so over here we have the output. So there's only there are two outputs. Remember, we have the loading publisher as well as the data source publisher. So over here, what we do is that we just switch through this value that's being returned. If it's enabled, I call the loading view, and I call the show animated gradient skeleton. Okay, so this is additional, and then if it's false, and then I hide the skeleton. So this should be quite easy to understand, right? Okay, data source publisher, this is should be pretty straightforward as well, because we are returning a string. In the event we receive a value, I'm just going to update the label.text. Alright guys, so I hope that this video is helpful. Leave any comments if you want to ask questions, and I'll see you in the next one.